Welcome all to the NAF Research and Tech Talk series. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Nick Minar. I'm the Director of Research and Reporting at NAF, here at NAF. And I'm really thrilled to have everyone on the stream and have you take time out of your busy day to join us today. It's a real treat to bring some of these speakers on and just have chats and conversations with our network of staff and educators. Apologies for the late start. We were having some technical difficulties on our end, but we're glad to be with you now. Just a quick bit of housekeeping before we get started. Just wanted to let the audience know that these conversations are recorded and posted to social media after they take place. So if you haven't already, please be sure to check out our NAF Research and Tech LinkedIn page for a link to this recording after the fact. We also post these recordings to our NAF YouTube channel, as well as the NAF Educator Facebook page on Facebook. So you can check either of those if you'd like the recording after the fact, so you could rewatch it again or share it with any potential folks who may be interested. We encourage you to do that. Also, for the folks joining us in the audience, if you would just quickly drop in the chat who you are, where you're coming from today, what organization or school district you're with. This just kind of helps, our conversation later in this session, so we all get to know each other a little better as we go on here. So if you've been with us in the past, the structure of today's talk is going to be a little different than it has been in the past. I'm going to be joined today by my wonderful research and tech colleague, the lovely Ms. Dee Chambliss. She's the Director of Network Evaluation here at NAF. Dee had a very large part in actually getting this particular research and tech talk off the ground, so I'm really happy to be tag teaming it with her today. I'm going to bring Dee onto the stream now so she can just introduce herself, say a couple words, and then together we're going to kind of set the stage before we bring on our speakers today. So Dee, I'm going to bring you on now.
Hi, everybody. How exciting it is to be a part of this discussion. I'm really happy to be learning along with you today from these great expert researchers in PAR. So let's move on and learn together.
Just typing in the chat here to remind our audience, just let us know who you are and where you're coming from today before we get started. And also, we want this to be a really engaging, bi-directional talk that involves not just Dee and I and our two speakers today, but also you, the audience. So throughout our time today, if you have questions or comments, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and Dee and I are going to be monitoring that as we go along, and we'll try to incorporate your questions to the best of our ability.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we bring out our two speakers, Dee and I are going to quickly set the stage and just introduce the topic of youth participatory action research and really how NAF is trying to incorporate this research framework into some of the work we're doing, specifically to capture youth voice. So let me first start by defining just youth participatory action research at a very high level, and then our speakers can correct me if I get anything wrong here in this initial section. So really, youth participatory action research is an innovative and collaborative research really lens and paradigm that is still doing all those traditional research things. You're trying to, for example, ask a question, you're collecting data, and you're trying to find an answer to that data, to that question. But where PAR differs is PAR being participatory action research, is it heavily involves the people or the population who are at the core of that question being studied, both in the research design and in the evaluation of that data. So just as a quick example, if pretend I'm a researcher at NAF and I want to conduct, studies on our students and what outcomes are indicative to their success, a YPAR approach would include students in the research design and the evaluation of those specific questions we're investigating. So again, it differs from traditional research in that a research team isn't coming in and kind of conducting research independent of the population they're studying or interested in, and then summarizing the results for them, but rather it's a cooperative research and coordination process where the folks at the very heart of that research question are having an active voice in shaping what that research looks like. So again, that's just kind of a very high-level overview, and I'm sure Dr. Poncelet and Katera will correct me if I said anything incorrectly. But now for D, how do we want to incorporate this in what we're doing? What's NAF trying to do to incorporate this YPAR framework?
Well, we're learning. We really are leaning in with PAR, and it's particularly interesting to us at NAF. PAR is because we see the parallels. We see the parallels between what participatory action research is when we to youth, and then also what it can mean to our NAF design, our approach to creating future-ready students. So we're paying attention because this is a really beautiful framework for intentional engagement at an organizational level, not one individual getting engaged, but how do we be intentional about engaging youth and truly engaging them in a way that they can become a part of decision making, planning, design around interests that really mean something to them. Relevancy is a big part of what NAF does. We want our youth to be learning around what is interesting to them, what matters to them. This is no different, but it's a really, really nice framework for getting this to be a part of your system, of your academy, of your school. So I am excited that we are working with Birmingham City Schools, and Winona High School is piloting PAR as a part of their youth development, their youth engagement this year, and I'm just giving them a big shout out because I know that we have Ebony on, we have Angela Smith on, and this is what it means to have people engaged, leaning in, learning, co-creating, problem solving toward making things better for everyone. So thank you guys for joining, and we're going to get to the learning. I see Diavante too. So
cool. Great. Yeah, we got a lot of folks from Winona. So happy to have everyone here. So consider the stage set. And now I'm going to move on to bring our two guests out. I'll bring you out one at a time just so you can introduce yourselves and say a couple words on anything you'd like our educators and our staff to know about the real you. Everyone got a bio before this particular talk, but this is just, in case you want to share anything that a standard bio may not communicate. So first I'm going to bring out Dr. Julie Poncelet. Thank you for joining us today, Julie. Let me get you on screen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julie Poncelet. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm an independent research and evaluation consultant and adjunct professor at Columbia University. Things that you probably don't know about me that aren't included in my bio is that I was born in Belgium, raised in Canada, and immigrated to the United States about 20 years ago.
Wow, that's great. Thank you very much, Julie, for joining us today. Next, I'm going to bring out Ms. Katera Brown. Katera, I'm going to unmute you. Oh, sorry, you just unmuted yourself. Let me unmute you again. And I'm going to bring you out here. Thank you for joining us today. And please introduce yourself to our network of staff and educators.
Cool. So I'm Katera Brown. I live in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm a research assistant in YPAR team for senior funding consulting. And I do, outside of that, I study human services, and I'm a photographer, and I like art. And
we can tell from the nice artwork you have in your bedroom there, a real artist touch. Mm-hmm. So to get us started in our conversation today, in preparation for this talk, Dee and along with Julie and Katera just really outlined some basic questions we're going to go over, just kind of talking about YPAR and introducing it to everyone on the call. But again, I'd like to reiterate that we want this to be an engaging discussion that includes our audience. So as we go along, feel free to drop comments or questions in the chat, and we're going to be incorporating those to the best of our ability. So if you don't mind, I'll just get the ball rolling. And this question could be either for both of you or for one of you, whoever would like to answer. I kind of gave a high-level overview of what participatory action research is, but what is, in your definition, participatory action research, and then how does that differ from youth participatory action research? And really, what's the difference between those two, and how does it differ from other types of youth engagement?
Katera, do you want to go first, or would you like?
Yeah. So, well, YPAR is typically done by adults, and when it's done that way, it often fails to conceptualize and like when it comes to sexual and reproductive health and mental health, it fails to conceptualize their concerns accurately. So, yeah, and I feel like YPAR should be done by youth or with youth. Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Well, participatory action research, or PAR, is a research and an engagement process whereby, as you mentioned, Nick, at the introduction, those who are most affected by an issue, this could be an issue in a school or in a community, are engaged or maybe even self-organized to co-lead an analysis of the issue. And I'm going to quickly share something, a little image here that kind of just helps
Let me get that on the
frame the
screen.
process.
I'm going to hide myself and DU temporarily as well, just so we have more space for the graphic.
And so, basically, this is a participatory action research is a process by which people kind of lead an organization or an analysis of why an issue exists and what can be done to address a particular issue, the planning of actions to address this particular issue that's been identified by those at the center or those most affected by it, the implementation of those actions, and then a process of evaluation of those actions, really taking stock to understand, did the actions realize the goals that we hoped? And then reflecting on the information that you collect through the evaluation process and really sharing this information and then adapting your process or your cycle. PAR can be used in a lot of different ways. It can be used in research. It can be used in community settings, including in schools, or even as part of program evaluation work. And PAR is very different from other forms of research and engagement because it's really deeply rooted in a set of values. The first is really around shared ownership. And what that means is that those who are most affected by an issue are leading and sharing in decision-making and responsibility throughout the process. As everybody mentioned, it's highly participatory. And that means that this is a process that is flexible, it's iterative. And again, those who are most affected are engaged throughout the process. And not just in a way where we're extracting information from these individuals. It's not a tokenistic engagement. It's really shared ownership and decision-making. And then the last component is that we're doing this, we're engaging in participatory action research because we want to take action. The purpose is to change a particular issue and an issue that affects a group of people. Now, YPAR, or Youth Participatory Action Research, as Katera mentioned, is really specifically focused on engaging young people as directors and as co-leaders in this planning, action, evaluation, and reflection process. So the focus is going to be on issues that are most important to young people, and it really is a compelling process for engaging and increasing youth voice and youth engagement. It can also be really transformative. And by that, I mean that when you think about it, if a group of young people are engaging in transforming conditions in their schools or in their communities, they're effectively changing the context of their environment, of their development, but they're also changing themselves and hopefully also helping to transform adults who are involved in the process.
I think that's a really important aspect of this research is it's not just research for research's sake, right? It's moving towards a social issue, a justice issue intentionally, right? So that's definitely something I didn't include in that high level overview, but it's worth reiterating that you just spoke to.
That's right. Yes. So it can be very much focused on, and usually is focused on issues of social change or social justice, but it could also be other issues that are related to learning environments and really wanting to make sure that learning environments are student-centered.
Gotcha.
I think I just read recently where someone described PAR as a way for those participating to see the invisible, because everybody's working together and working really hard, but you really can't see, you can't know fully the impact of how this works for me or it doesn't work for me. I can't see that. I can't possibly know the nuances that would make a difference for your participation or your experience being more enhanced or better. So it's really a way to see what you can't see when you're not collaborating or not bringing those people who have lived experiences to the table and treating them as valued experts. I can't possibly know what a 10th grader might need. I can suspect, I can read, I can do research, but I can really learn from what a 10th grader tells me or what they bring to the table and want to share. So that leads me to think about what's in it for the young people, what's in it for the grown people. What does it look like for youth and adults to be working together? Maybe how you would describe the roles.
Well, I can describe the roles of adults. I won't describe the roles of young people because that would be very authentic of me. So in terms of the roles of adults, so adults really need to be allies in a YPAR process. But it's really important that we understand that the way that adults conceptualize youth really matters in this case. So young people have to be seen as assets, as resourceful agents of change, youth as partners in community development, organizing, social justice work, whatever the focus might be. They're not just kids, they're not just children. Words and labels really do matter. And it's really important for adults to help youth see themselves as important in the here and now. We often say that children are our future, and that's true, and that's important. But their current lived experience in the here and now, their being and doing in this moment is very important, and that matters. And that's part of the role of the adult allies, is to reinforce that. It's also important for adults to be committed to participatory practices and shared responsibility and decision-making with youth. Adults are positions as people of authority, either in schools and communities, and really have the power to support youth empowerment, really to support young people as those change agents by encouraging young people to identify issues that are important to them and to develop action plans to address those issues. And in this process, adults also kind of need to see themselves as learners alongside with young people. Adults don't have all the answers, and in fact are likely not direct experts in some of the experiences that young people have, especially in relation to this one issue. And that means that adults have to be patient. They have to recognize the unique challenges that young people face and really take the time to listen and collaborate with young people as allies and not bosses. And that means listening to young people's ideas and recommendations.
Great. Yeah, thank you. I think that's really important. And what we're creating is what you're describing is not a coup, guys, right? Take it over the school. but we're recognizing that we're all in this together. We truly are all in this together. And there's just as much learning to be done as there is teaching for all of the experts involved. And I think that's a really big assumption when communities are thinking about PAR. We are really having to assume that we are all intending to be learners and teachers. And I think that description of what the adult allies do is really critical, because there's a big pivot here for a lot of our adults in schools. It's just by design. So I'll toss it back to you, Nick, unless we're ready to hear from what Katera has to say about what young people are doing.
Yeah. I want to find out too. So Katera, let us know what we've heard now, kind of how adults are, what their role in YPAR is, but having been involved in PAR yourself, what's the role of young people in this process?
Yes. So, well, I see it as a massive opportunity for like professional development. And it gives us an opportunity to look deeper into the environments and the communities. And like Julie said, because it affects us, so why wouldn't we look into it ourselves, you know? And this professional development can happen through like you get to develop your own project, do the data collection yourself, do the research, the lit reviews. Those aren't always as fun, but it's information, so why not? And you get to do the analysis, the reporting, and then you get to learn how to do. I develop like lots of skills, like learn how to do digital design, and like let me just show you this book. I like basically studied this book and learned how to do digital design. So you get really good materials and information. You get to connect with adults and stakeholders into communities and in your community. And but all while having fun, of course. So
Sure. Yeah, I mean, aside from the topic, the YPAR group may be studying, like you just said, this is an opportunity for youth to learn transferable skills. Everyone I know wants to be able, or knows that critical thinking is a transferable skill and a career-ready skill. So that was actually, when you were talking, that was something I didn't even actually think about in terms of this process. So that's actually really excellent to hear. So kind of along those same lines, I have a background in experimental research, so by no means participatory action research, so I'm kind of a rookie in this area. But when you're thinking about building a team that's going to be conducting YPAR, what are some of the things those individuals should be thinking about, either the youth and the adults, or the school, if a school's trying to institute that? What are some of those pointers you would recommend?
I would recommend just doing the recruitment right, finding diverse people to be in your team, obviously having youth on your team. Be intentional with your purpose and let the youth know straightforward what the purpose is. Yeah.
Gotcha. So transparency is a big issue then, it sounds like. What you're setting out to do, and be very focused on that, it sounds like.
Yeah. I think adult readiness is really important. And that is, are adults ready to engage young people in terms of shared ownership and these really participatory, very iterative processes? So really providing a space and an opportunity for adults to reflect critically on current youth engagement and voice practices, either within their NAF academies, within schools, or within the community, whatever kind of the geography or the context of the work. A readiness step with adult allies is also a really great way to reflect on any assumptions. As Dee was saying, this is a process by which we make visible that which is invisible. And there are a lot of assumptions kind of built into our engagement with other people, especially when we think about youth and adult engagement or teacher-student engagement. So this is really a great way to think about some of these assumptions and how they might influence our engagement with young people. Other items that I think are important for consideration when we think about bringing our YPAR teams together is is really recognizing that this is a flexible process and it takes time. So any process that is engaged in trying to bring about change and where we're really focused on the people who are most affected by an issue is going to take time to build trust, to establish practices, and to just kind of get into a groove of this work. You can certainly plan around existing school schedules, but you really also need to think about a regular kind of dedicated meeting time. That's really important. Another thing is buy-in from adults in position of authority or leadership within schools, districts, or communities. At one point, you're going to need to leverage them. For instance, when young people report back on their findings or their recommendations, we really want those recommendations and those findings to be taken seriously and to be used. All of this work went into this process, and it wasn't because we just want to engage young people. It's because we actually want to change something. So buy-in is also really important when we think about accessing resources. And that could be as simple as accessing space in schools or in community centers, maybe materials that young people might need in their YPAR process, or maybe even funding. I think a couple of other tips might be understanding that getting PAR, like understanding it and really wrapping your brain around it, just it takes time. So maybe one of the best things is jump in the deep end and just learn by doing. We're going to make mistakes, and that's okay because that's part of the learning journey. And the last thing is really letting young people take the lead. And that may mean that it requires a little bit of time for young people to feel accustomed to leading or sharing with adults. Not always. I have found that young people have absolutely no problem sharing their ideas and their inspirations and their energy, but not everybody reacts the same way. So, just really taking time to kind of go through the process. And this is why it's really exciting, because NAF is currently co-developing a toolkit with young people and adult allies at Winona High School in Birmingham, Alabama. And we're really kind of going through and creating really fun kind of interactive agendas with activities that try and engage people in different ways.
Gotcha. That's a lot of sage advice. Dee, I'll pass it off to you for the next question.
So it's great to hear those nuggets of what works. I'm going to ask for forgiveness later, but I am going to ask those who are on today's audience to put in the chat, what are you waiting to hear? What is it that you are like, well, I can't wait till they talk about this? Because we want to answer those questions. We want to know, what is it that is of interest to you? And if I would indulge myself, I've never done PAR. I'm doing it now, and it's so cool. I'm learning, and I'm hoping that I can have a lived experience with PAR. But you guys have. Julie, Dr. Poncelet, you have. Katera, you have. We have not. Tell me, what is it? What was that issue? I'd love to hear from Katera. What was that issue that made you realize we can do something about this and make it better? We can improve it. I've got a role I can play in this. What does it start? What does it look like to get you involved in PAR?
Honestly, it looks like positive people, like someone in the chat said, good vibes. Good vibes, they bring me in. People, positive people, like what kept me during my internship when I was doing it, what kept me doing it was good vibes and having the outings and being affirmed and everything. So positivity.
What solution? What was the issue that you're that you were working with young people on? If you could tell us.
So here in Omaha, we have the Adolescent Health Project, and we focus on sexual and reproductive health needs and for birth control and condom use and stuff like that. And yeah.
And so the young people decided that that was something they really wanted to embrace, learn more about, create different kind of experience.
Well, so basically with our internships, we get to develop our own projects and we get to decide what we want to research about sexual and reproductive health. So I guess for my internship, it was what encouraged and discouraged youth and young adults, 15 to 24-year-olds, to get tested in Omaha and seek services. So I guess that would be the issue, is youth and young adults getting tested and seeking services in Omaha.
That's so cool. And Julie, what are some of the issues that have gotten young people mobilized and excited and moving in this PAR process?
Well, before I answer that, I'm just going to give a little plug to Katera. She is being incredibly, she's not revealing the fact that they used some incredible data collection methods to do this work, including secret shoppers going in and going into the clinics and reporting back on their engagement with clinic staff.
Wow.
They really developed an incredible data collection program and insight collection program for this project. So I just wanted to make sure to plug that in. Really innovative methods developed by young people. So incredible insights and energy. In terms of the projects that I've worked on that have brought young people, it's ranged from everything from skateboarding and creating skatable spaces in like downtown Toronto, because we were redeveloping Toronto to not be youth friendly, or at least certain segments of Toronto to not be youth friendly, and around issues of community health and access to healthy foods in communities. And just being able to create opportunities where young people have a role as either an advocacy group or an advisory group in schools, in community-based organizations, or even at the district level. So those are some of the kind of the projects where this process was used to really bring young people together, or I should say young people really brought themselves and adults together.
That's great. Thank you. That's what I was hungry to hear. And I see that we have a couple of, but at least we have another question that I think we're going to get to, Nick, around outcomes.
But let's jump to it right now. Ms. Angela Smith from Alabama, from Birmingham, Winona, I believe, asks, what are some of the outcomes of PAR? And we were going to get to that, but no better time to tackle it now.
I mean, in terms of from an academic research perspective, as well as things that I've observed, we know that PAR is aligned with problem-based learning and is a really culturally relevant way of engaging young people and sharing and co-creating knowledge. And so PAR really has an opportunity to affect young people in their learning environments or their communities in different ways. And research shows that it has increased young people's self-esteem and sense of self. It's improved academic outcomes like attendance rates, literacy skills, and academic self-confidence, so how young people feel as students. It's also strengthened problem solving and critical thinking skills. So things like being able to do a root cause analysis, like this is the issue, what causes the issue, and really understanding that. As Katera mentioned, like having to do lit reviews may not always be the most exciting and sexiest thing, but it does reveal a whole lot of information. And things like knowing how to collect and interpret data and different types of data and being able to identify credible findings. These are all kind of some of these important critical thinking skills. There's also increasing awareness and exposure to higher education and career pathways, fostering and sharpening civic engagement, civic identity, and political awareness, and also promoting intergenerational relationships between adults and young people, which is really important. There is one thing I will stress, and that is, while academic outcomes are absolutely wonderful, research shows that we don't want to overemphasize just the academic outcomes. Instead, we really want to emphasize that YPAR as a process and a value is really about young people working alongside adults as peers, generating ideas, testing assumptions, making decisions, and really redressing issues that are important to young people. That
is awesome. So tell us, Katera, what did it look like when you finished your project? What did it look like for you? I know you got the new skills, but what was that thing that said, I'm done?
Done with what?
Yeah. So, hey, what happened at the end of PAR, as you're going through the PAR process? What happened to you, for your community? What was the outcome?
Well, I'll say for me, okay, so when I started my internship, I kind of went in with the attitude, I don't care about anything. I don't care about sexual and reproductive health. I don't need to learn nothing. I don't want to learn nothing. But my job was like willing to teach me. And after all of this, after my internship was over, and I'm still learning this stuff, is I've learned how to like communicate better with adults, communicate better via email, something I'm still working on. I've learned how to use online meeting tools like Mural, and I've learned how to present more effectively. I presented at national conferences like AEA. Yeah, I've been able to like share my connections throughout the communities, like the homeless shelters and like youth organizations and stuff. I've been able to connect with them and show them what YPAR is as well. And yeah, honestly, my biggest thing is just communication. My communication skills are like, they're way better than what they were before.
Yes. Well, I give you an A+ on that. So I'm gonna toss it back to you, Nick.
Yeah, these are all great insights and a lot of rich information coming out of both of you in terms of how to implement the YPAR process, what it's all about. Something I'm sure is on a lot of folks' minds, especially given our current situation, is what does YPAR look like in the COVID space? I know maybe you can talk a little bit more about some of those challenges or maybe potentially some of those solutions addressing that area.
Actually, I'm going to let Katera answer because I know that there's some really exciting things happening with her YPAR process.
Yeah. So when COVID first hit, we were in the middle of internship, and me and my coworker Molly Ashford, we were co-leading with our boss, and we had to transition everything and start meeting in the offices to online. That was a bit challenging. Lots of virtual fatigue and online data collection. We had to rethink and guide our interns in transitioning the whole entire project. But that went well, and they found new data collection methods, and we found out like social media actually is a very good way to collect data, and we just started a new internship, all virtual, the day before yesterday. So it's pretty cool.
That's great. Yeah. It's good to know the process hasn't stopped, in light of everything going on. Yeah, definitely. Julie, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think some of the reflections based on my experience and also just speaking with other adult allies who are doing this kind of work is that there are a lot of challenges. We know that remote engagement can exacerbate a lot of racial and economic injustices because not everybody has access to or equitable access to technology. And it's made it a lot harder to establish those trusting relationships that are really important in this process. It just takes a little bit more time. And so I think that's really one of the biggest things is that what we could achieve potentially in a 30 or 60-minute meeting in person might now take several meetings just to make sure people feel comfortable sharing. It's hard to engage people on these little tiles, and maybe some people aren't comfortable with what's in their background or the noises that are around them. And it's just figuring out then different engaging. And that could be as simple as using text messaging or group chats and social media, as Katera mentioned. A lot of engagement through videos. People could also make videos and share videos. And using cloud-based platforms. It could be as simple as using Google Suites or using things like Miro or Mural as a way of creating collaborative spaces. And the great thing is that a lot of these platforms are now also available freely to educators and students. So it's a lot easier for instance, educator adult allies to be able to connect with some of these resources and kind of learn alongside young people. We've also noticed that a lot of existing toolkits for YPAR work, because there are so many resources out there, have started to create these virtual curriculums or virtual agendas. So we are seeing that those who are doing the work of YPAR are sharing their experiences in a virtual remote environment and kind of altering or shifting their agendas so that they work for this new reality.
Gotcha. A lot of good insight.
One thing to add to Julie's, one thing to add to Julie's thing is the online platforms like Google Docs and stuff. We've used those a lot. Like we have like an intern-facing file, an us-facing file. So those platforms are really, really helpful when it comes to collaborating.
That's great. Yeah. I imagine that's essential, right? It's the collaboration between youth and adults working together. So whatever mechanism you can do to make that as seamless as possible, whether it's using those Google Suites or ShareFile or Teams or whatever it is, I imagine that's really kind of ramped up in the COVID space for sure. Dee, I'll pass it off to you.
Yeah, so I'm kind of piggybacking, but I was listening to you, Katera, and you were saying that your PAR experience was rooted in or came to you through an internship. So some of our youth, our young researchers that are in our audience, their PAR experience is coming to them through their academy, through their Academy of Hospitality and Tourism. This opportunity has been presented to them. So working as an intern through PAR, who are the adult allies? Who were the grown people that you worked with, that you went to, that were supporting your work or helping to co-create with you?
Well, we had one main person that worked with a team of 8 youth and young adults. Their name is Scout Black. And also the Women's Fund of Omaha locally is who we partner with and do all this through. And they gave us all the opportunities to present to different people and on different panels and different community events. So yeah, luckily we were supported and backed up through a lot of organizations here.
So they opened some doors for you. They made some connections for you. They guided you on the kinds of resources or the kind of information you might be prepared to share.
Yeah.
Cool.
And they still, even though my internship is over and I'm a research assistant now, they still send us like panels and local professional development things too. So adults are always here for us, especially during COVID.
Mm-hmm. That's really helpful. I was also thinking, Julie, PAR is so flexible. It can be something like a 2 people or 1 person idea issue that allies are brought in to help support. Because it is about authentic issue, an authentic course toward a solution. Like we're not just making time. We're not just checking a box to say we had that experience. It has got to be something that is moving us towards something that is going to be better or enhanced. So is there anything else you want to share around what PAR can look like in these different spaces?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great thing is that PAR has been used in a lot of different settings. And when we're thinking about learning environments, it's been integrated into actual core curriculum. So as a way of exploring maybe historical issues or issues that are important to a particular community, as a way of even exploring concepts in science. Identifying perhaps a specific environmental issue and then building an entire science curriculum around that one issue and how to tackle that issue. PAR has also been used in after-school programs or as kind of as a club opportunity. And in those cases, it might be an adult ally who has a particular idea that might bring young people together, or an adult ally who creates a space for young people to come together and really identify an issue that might be important to them. It could be something around maybe an environmental issue in the community. It could be a social justice issue in the community, or it could be something really specific to school, how to create more student-centered learning opportunities within the school, or creating more avenues for youth voice within the district level. It's also very popular in nonprofit organizations that support young people in a lot of different ways, from STEM programs to programs that you find like the Girl Scouts, Girl Guides, and there are entire curriculums that have been developed around encouraging a small group of young people working with one adult ally, again, on this one issue that's really important. These processes can last a matter of maybe as short as 3 to 6 months to multiple years. And I've seen nonprofit organizations that have carried these projects on for multiple years, where young people are brought into the process when they're still in they've just moved into high school. They're in high school. They might be in the 10th grade, and they participate throughout their high school experience. So they're there for 3 years, and then they help bring in and shepherd in a new group of young people. And the topics might change a little bit depending on the particular group of young people, but usually if it's a community-based issue, whatever project or PAR project they may have worked previously connects somehow to this new PAR issue. Because when you think about the process, it's this very iterative, and you're basically using information that you've gathered and that you've learned from one PAR process to inform the process moving forward. And so I've seen a lot of flexibility in terms of the duration of the process, the number of young people. It's certainly helpful to have a certain group of young people, at least 5 or 6 young people, if not more, simply because we know life happens, and you want to make sure that you have enough participation throughout your various cycles of meetings to carry on the work. I've also seen the project being used in government settings as a way of creating more spaces for youth advisory councils within local and state governments.
That is really helpful, because that's exactly what I was saying, such a broad continuum of how the PAR process, the protocols, the shared planning, decision-making, how that can be set in so many different settings or environments, right up to this is just the way our student council works.
Absolutely.
It does not stand alone. It is not what the kids do by themselves. It is an integrated part of our leadership, and they have allies that support them on that. So thank you. I know that we want to get to questions, so I don't want to go much further. Nick, I'm going to let you drive.
That's fine. I feel like the discussion is great, but yeah, for folks in the audience, don't be shy if you have any questions. I'm sure Julie and Katera are more than happy to answer them. I'll ask another quick question while people are forming potential questions if they have any. So I participated in. Oh wait, we actually have a question here. So we have. Let me put it on screen. Tiara is asking, are we in charge of bringing the ideas for new things, or are we in charge of finding a way to fulfill the given tasks? I'm assuming that's the youth voice in a given PAR process.
That's a really great question, Tiara. So it could be it could be both. So you could be in a PAR process where young people are really the directors and are making the decisions, and the adult allies are there to provide support, connect young people to resources, to information, whatever it might be. In other cases, it could be that adult allies, for very, very positive and good intentions, kind of set certain parameters around the subject that might be the topic of the PAR. So it could be, we really want to redesign a course. We really want to redesign certain elements of this particular learning environment. And we don't want to do it alone. We want to do it in partnership with young people because we really want it to be youth-centered or student-centered. And so in that case, young people would be part of the conversation in identifying core elements and of carrying out the process, but you may not necessarily have selected the parameters of that project. But you're nonetheless still co-collaborators, co-designers, and peers working alongside adults.
Katera, you had your topic selected for you for the most part. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, we were given a theory of change, and we were, which is around sexual and reproductive health. And we got to look at the theory of change and then pick what we wanted to focus on.
So
overall,
the theory,
we did, yeah, develop our own. We got to develop everything ourselves, but it had to be focused on sexual and reproductive health in past research and the theory of change.
so you mentioned so the question you guys settled on was how do we get more youth to access resources and to ask for help or to participate. That was what you guys were going to try to do. How do we get more youth to take advantage of these services? Is that right?
Well, yeah, I think that's what we would want, but we had to do it in a equal way, which is look at what encouraged and discouraged them from services. But like I said, this is our 4th internship so far, and everyone, they research different things and different topics. Like we have one that focused on sexual and reproductive health and family and religion. And, yeah. And then sexual and reproductive health and mental health. So,
but you went out, but you guys did, once you settled on within those parameters, you settled on the topic that you really wanted to focus on, and then you did the work along with your allies supporting you. Like you did the survey, you figured it out.
Yeah, we developed the survey. We did data collection outside, and we were just watched by Scout, and they let us lead and do everything.
And when you got the survey data back, who analyzed it?
I think Scout analyzed it, and we got to help. We got to figure out themes and everything, because at this point we're just new into it. So Scout analyzed, and we figured out the themes and organized everything, and then created the report or infographic. Scout created the actual report, and we created an infographic, a smaller version of the report.
Cool. So that's analysis, right? That's all the fancy words we put to it. You had to do that. Yeah, and then you had to put it together in some way that would be meaningful to a group that could make some other decisions about educating young people.
Yep.
Cool. Was it Tatiana? I'm not sure who had the Tiara. Did that answer your question? So let us know if that answered your question. Any other questions?
Yeah, a couple more came up. I'm hoping we addressed in part a question from GH that just said, how will decisions made in PAR come into effect? I'm hoping some of your answers just address that. Hopefully it's through a collaborative effort that some of those decisions come into effect. I think we maybe only have time for one more question, but I felt like a question posed here by Ebony was really important. So I'd like to highlight this if that's okay. And it's just, how can it be guaranteed we be partners and have our voices heard instead of being overlooked.
Wow, that's a very powerful and very critical question. Well, there's never any guarantees. So, but one of the things is that when we engage in this kind of work, there is, for instance, a declaration that was created by a group of young people and adult allies called the Wingspread Declaration. And it basically establishes the role of young people and adult allies who engage in this process, if you will, agree that this is the role of young people and that they're there to support young people to realize these roles and responsibilities and are not there to take over. There are certain techniques, and Katera and I were just talking about them earlier today. Things like liberating structures, these really innovative ways of engaging groups into conversation and to make decisions in a way where everybody's inputs count. So there are absolutely ways in which you can share responsibility, engage in really participatory decision making, and really ensure that youth voice and youth choice leads in the YPAR process. And I don't maybe Katera, you have some really concrete examples of how you in your internship you were able to realize that.
I kind of spaced a little bit, but to answer Emily's question, like Julie said, you can't. It's not always going to be guaranteed, but just know what you're doing and stand your ground, I guess. And don't be afraid to be aggressive. And yeah.
Yeah, if it's an important topic, it's worth pursuing aggressively, I would think. Right. I want to be conscious of people's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to add that the end game is not. You're not going to get there maybe with one cycle of PAR. You might want to change the world. We're going to use PAR to change the world, but it's not going to happen through one set of researching, acting, decision making, implementing, and then reflection. We probably won't save the world with one cycle. So there are going to be intermediate gains. There are going to be intermediate growth, learnings that are going to help us spiral that toward the kind of outcomes that we all share. So I think that is what we're after, is for true engagement towards something that means something to all of us. And we want to co-create that together.
Mm-hmm. Well put. I want to be conscious of people's time. We are at the top of the hour, and the hour just flew by when you're talking about PAR. So I want to thank everybody in the audience and for our speakers and for Dee being here today, and for just engaging in this process and this talk with us. Really quickly, before we end the session, for the members of our audience, you should know that there are YPAR resources available on the NAF Academy Support Hub on ASH. So all you have to do is type in PAR or YPAR into the search bar at the top, and then you may have to filter for PDF documents just to make it come up at the top. But you can look there, and we also share, as they're made available, we share any resources over our NAF Research and Tech LinkedIn page. So if you haven't joined us or followed us on LinkedIn, please be sure to do that. And if you're having any trouble finding any of these resources, please feel free to reach out to either me or Dee or Dr. Poncelet or Katera as well. As Dr. Poncelet noted, there is a PAR video series as well as a PAR implementation toolkit specifically tailored for educators that we hope to have come out. Dee, am I correct, in 2021, early part of 2021? Is that
for the full series? Yes, we should have parts of that toolkit available even now. But we'll be letting you know when the full toolkit and video series are available very soon.
Great. So thank you for that, and be sure to keep your eyes peeled for that as well. For our two speakers today, Dr. Poncelet and Katera, how can our network of staff and educators keep up to date on the work you're doing? Do you have your own website? Are you both on Twitter? Like, what would be the best way for our network just to follow, what you're doing in the future? aside from potentially having you back for another talk a little later in the future?
I guess we have an Instagram. It's kind of like we reactivate it every time an internship comes through. So yeah, I think it's YPAR _HB or something like that. I guess I'll send it to you. And,
Okay.
And I guess an email always works, and we'll always give our things out. And if you're connected to AEA, all of our presentations and stuff are linked in there as well. AEA is American Evaluation Association.
Great.
And that's how Katera and I are collaborators in a topical interest group called Youth Focused Evaluation. And Katera is one of our leadership members. So we have 2 leadership members, and we're trying to get more young people involved as leaders in an adult association and kind of an adult conference setting, so that we're creating spaces that are more friendly and geared towards young people and really encouraging that participation. I would say another way, so definitely through AEA Youth Focused Evaluation, and I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Thank you, guys.
All right, fantastic. So thank you both again. We hope our audience walked away with some great knowledge about the Youth PAR process and its importance in all different types of research, not just education research. I hope everyone has a safe holiday season and a wonderful new year. And be sure to keep an eye out for an announcement whenever our next Research and Tech Talk is. It would probably be the end of January, early part of February. So thank you again.
Nick, can I give a shout out to our young researchers? And we are so excited to have you. We're excited to have the allies also from Birmingham with us. And just know that your PAR experience would also be valuable for all of us to learn from. So we're looking forward to a chance when we're watching you share what it is that you've learned and created in this space. So kudos to you. Thank you again for being the experts for our learning today, Julie and Katera. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, for those folks that went out, we split the screen up 4 ways, but we might be able to split it up more ways in the future. So thank you.
Great.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good day, everyone.
Bye-bye.